So as we mentioned earlier on, that 2024 will be an election year like no other for South Africa. For the first time in the history of the country, independents will be allowed to contest for seats in the National Assembly and Provincial legislatures. To speak a little bit more about this, we are joined now by political analyst Dr. Levy Ndou. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Dr. Ndou. I want to first reflect on the Concord hearing on the constitutionality of the Electoral Amendment Act. It would seem, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there has been no conclusion to a point where the IEC said it would like some sort of conclusion that it gets direction from.
Good evening, Tepiso. Good evening to the viewers at home. Of course, there has been some delays which were caused by the parliamentary processes, where there has been arguments that relates to the amount of money that independent candidates have to pay for them to be able to contest the elections. But even though the IEC appears to be quite ready and be prepared to run elections, even though they are going to be independent candidates. You started by indicating that this is going to be a very important elections in the sense that there is going to be independent candidates, but also it will be important because the ANC, if you look at the track record with the past elections, it appears to be losing votes, and this gives courage to other opposition parties to see some form of light at the end of the tunnel, and that encourages them to work even harder. But also at the same time, it's going to be interesting because political parties in South Africa have actually tested power through working together through coalitions, and some political parties have started already to have discussions around cooperations beyond the general elections, so that they are able to prevent the chaos that we've actually observed in the different metros of South Africa.
Let's talk about chaos. We've been showing pictures of one of the pioneers of seeing us to this point where independent candidates have seen this become a bill that's been signed into law. But on the issue of constitutionality, the Chief Justice at some point did ask the One Movement South Africa advocate Andrea Gabriel to substantiate why they brought the matter to the court, asking about the 14,000 signature threshold, why this was seen as an unfair barrier for independence. Will this, according to your view, make it difficult for somebody to run as an independent, whereas I think the threshold before was 1,000 signatures and a fee of 5,000 rand?
It appears as if there has been some form of not wanting to see independent candidates coming in. The treatment that independent candidates appears to be receiving is different from those of different political parties. And equally, some people, especially politicians, see the contestation of independence as some form of depoliticizing elections in South Africa. And of course, it might not be easy to get 14,000 signatories, but it can still be easy for an independent candidate to be elected by more than 14,000 individuals. And my sense is that independent candidates might be feeling that if that has to be done, it gives them too much work to do even before they could contest the elections. And the part of the argument, in my view, would be that whatever happens on the right should also happen on the left, and that could be the basis of the argument for those who are for the independent candidates.
Just following those proceedings, it would appear that there was a sense from the Concord that not enough evidence was given, that it wasn't evidence-based to say that this threshold would prove difficult for independence. But the argument from the IEC and its lawyers was that they sought to raise the requirements because at national election level, parties registered with the IEC's not only rose from 19 to 1994 to 48 in 2019, but that if you were to look at the 2021 polls, for instance, that there were 1,547 independent candidates, of which over 600 got less than 100 votes. So they're saying that it would prove to be organizationally difficult for the IEC if they didn't raise the threshold. What are your thoughts about this? Is this conducive for democracy?
Well, I think those are the challenges that we're supposed to go through them in order to enhance or nourish our democracy. What would appear to be an unfair situation would be when we actually prevent other people from participating because of logistical reasons. At the same time, democracy emphasizes that all people should be treated equally, and all those who would love to participate in the political system should actually be given a chance to do so. It is quite correct that if we've got a lot of political parties and independent candidates, it can create a huge administrative nightmare for the IEC. And I think that is why we have these kind of arguments that are coming in. But whether we like it or not, there should be a way in which the IEC, through acceptable procedures, has to come up or develop a framework that would limit the number of people that are supposed to participate in the elections, so that the elections could be run in a very, very smooth manner. Of course, even though we say anybody and everybody can be available or avail him or herself to be a candidate, we also need to be able, of course, to have ways and means in which certain people will therefore be prevented from participating.
Just finally, against the backdrop of constitutionalism and qualitative democracy, the Electoral Amendment Act, the Build One South Africa, remains consistent in their view. They say that the act is unconstitutional, that it makes it much harder for any new party to participate in an election, that it in fact favors old parties. What are your thoughts about where we are then in reference to the quality of our democracy as we go to the 2024 elections?
Well, I think Build South Africa could be quite correct, because you will look at the manner in which members of parliament had to treat this matter that relates to independent candidates. It's a matter that was not taken seriously, and on numerous occasions there were postponements, and most people got worried that Parliament appears not to be taking this matter seriously. Look, we are actually entrenching our democracy and make it work. It's only 30 years old. But at the same time, it will have some challenges, and as we build onto our democracy, we're going to have hiccups similar to this one. But my sense is that with the IEC and our own lawmakers, they should be able to develop a workable situation in which no one could feel being left out of the democratic process. At the same time, politicians would always be very jealous of the positions that they have, jealous about the erosion that might happen with the introduction of independent candidates. So it is not something surprising. They have to preserve what they have and do all they could to prevent the status quo.
Thank you so much for your time insights, Dr. Levy Ndou, political analyst, on why 2024 is built to be the watershed elections for South Africa post-democracy that it's been called to be.